Welcome back to the vlog. We're here at Capital Casino in Sacramento, California. It's been a scorcher this last week. Today the temperature was 116. Pretty hot. Anyway, we have a comment from last week's vlog by Keith. He says that, what's your mental technique for dealing with a long period of being card dead? And the best thing I can tell you is that you have to have patience, because you're going to want to play all sorts of garbage. And when you do, you're going to get yourself into trouble. If you can't find the patience, find the door. Go on home, spend time with family, friends, take your dog for a walk, whatever it is. Don't play if you're going to be playing what I call spewy. And try to remember that all bad runs always end with a good run, and all good runs always end with a bad one. So don't be surprised when they happen. I buy into the 1-3 game for $500. It's a brand new game, so we started off with a $15 bomb pot. There's 7 players on this particular bomb pot. Of course, we have the button because we drew the highest card. We got a pretty decent hand too. We got 8-5 suited. Hoping for a good flop, and that's exactly what we get when we comes ace 8-5 with 2 diamonds and a spade. So we got bottom 2 on a pretty draw heavy board. It gets checked around to the player to our right. He decides to take a little stab for $45. When he does, I think he might have some sort of straight draw, maybe a flush draw, and of course he could have an ace. I decided I'm going to raise this up to $145. My goal is to get him to fold all his weak aces and have him continue with some of his draws, but charge him for it. All the other players decide to fold out, and it comes back around to him. And, he decides he's going to go ahead and put in the call for the extra 100. When he does so, I'm trying to think what kind of hands he might have. I don't think he'll be doing this with a weak ace. I think he's more likely to be doing this with some sort of draw. If he had a strong ace or 2 pair, I think he probably would just get his chips in there right away. Anyway, we're hoping to get a clean turn card, but that's not exactly what happens when it comes to the ace of hearts. Probably the worst card in the deck, of course, because now I am counterfeited. He quickly checks. I figure I got 2 choices here. One is to continue to bet and try to get him to fold his straight draws and flush draws. He's going to be calling with any ace, of course. And the other is just to check and then try to catch him if he tries to bluff into me. But I don't like that idea, so I decided to bet it. And I think looking back on this, it's probably better just to check behind and give up on the hand if he fires big on the river. But I decided to bet 120. It's big enough to scare him if he has some sort of straight or flush draw. He makes a very quick call. He seems rather comfortable with this, so I think that he's calling here. He's definitely going to be calling on the river. So I gave up on this hand. He checks. I quickly checks behind. He shows the ace. And I feel like an idiot for wasting an extra $120. After losing that first hand, I added another $1,000 to my stack. So we can play a little deep stack poker today. Here we have a late position limper. Usually not a very strong hand. So with the ace high, I'm going to go ahead and isolate him by raising to 15. The blinds fold out and he puts in the call. So it's just going to be the 2 of us headed off to this flop with $34 in the center. Flop comes out pretty good. It comes out ace, queen, 7. There are 2 hearts. I do have the ace of hearts. He checks it over to me. I'm just going to check this back. I'm going for 2 streets of value here. I'll give him a free card maybe to catch up a little bit. Turn card comes as another 7. He decides to lead now for $15. If he has a 7, I'm in a world of hurt, but if he doesn't, I like my hand quite a bit. River card comes as a 5 of spades, a complete blank. He checks it over to me, meaning he has some showdown value, most likely a hand like a queen. I'm going to go for some value, bet out for $30, just trying to get a crying call out of a queen if he has one. If he check raises me, I'm going to puke, but looks like he's a little bit uncomfortable with that idea. He goes ahead and puts in the call. I show down the ace, and it's good. He did have a queen with the queen 3 of diamonds. We're in the straddle for $10, and we pick up one of our favorite deep stack hands, which is a small pocket pair. We flop a set with these things, we can win a really big pot. We got three other players that come in for the $10. Being out of position with a small pocket pair, I really don't like raising in this spot. I'd rather just see a flop. If I hit a set, I can make a bunch of money, and that's the plan. So when four of us sees the flop and it comes out Queen, 10, 9, rainbow. Not very good for pocket fours. So of course we check. It ends up getting checked around. Turn card comes is a 8 of hearts, completes the rainbow, and puts out a one-liner to a straight. We are totally giving up here, and we check it, and it gets checked around. And just in case we weren't beat before, a king comes on the end. I check it, it gets checked around. I say, any pair wins. Anyone have a pair? I guess I do. And I turned over my pair of fours, and it was good. Surprised the heck out of me. It's folded me in the hijack, and I got ace-10 offsuit. Definitely going to be putting in a raise to 15 here. Get a call from the player on my left. Button folds, and then the small blind, who is a fairly tight player, decides that this is the time he's going to wake up and put in a raise, and he makes it $60. Now, when you have a hand that does not play well deep stack and a tight player puts in a raise, you just fold and move on to the next hand. All right, we got more small pocket pairs. We love these things. I'm in middle position. I put in the raise after a limper. We get a couple callers. Looks like we're going to go four ways to this flop with $61 in. Flop comes out. King, king, 3, rainbow. Pretty good flop for a pair of fives. Checks to me. I'm going to be putting in a bet here all the time. I got to protect my pocket pair. If someone has a king or a bigger pocket pair, I'll know about it, but they all fold out. Player with a deep stack opens for $13. Another player puts in a call, and then a fairly tight player puts in a raise to $50. And he doesn't have a very big stack at all. He has about $260 left. It's folded me on the button, and normally I would just go ahead and raise again, but I kind of want to get mixed up with the player with the deep stack. So I decided to put in the call, kind of disguise the strength of my hand. I'm in position with a premium hand, and I'm suited. So what could go wrong? The other two players end up folding out, so we're heads up to the flop with king, king, 10 with 2 spades. Now the initial raiser puts in the check. Most likely he has a hand like maybe ace, queen, pocket queens, pocket jacks, something like that. If I'm lucky, he'll have something like king, queen. So I put in a bet for 50. He puts in a quick call for the 50. And we're going to a turn, which is a 9 of diamonds. It does bring in queen, jack, and pocket nines. He checks again. He doesn't have that much left in front of him. He has about 160, and there's 230 in the pot. So the only move that really makes sense is just to go ahead and put it all in, and he quickly lets it go. King Jack offsuit is one of those hands that look very, very playable for a small raise like to $12. But in actuality, in a deep stack game, you don't want to be messing around with these things. I got a little tempted because there was a couple callers, and I put in the additional $11. But this is the type of hand that can easily get reverse implied odds, meaning that you can hit your hand and it'll cost you a ton of money. When in actuality, you want to hit your hand and win a ton of money. The player in the big blind puts in a raise to $78. Everybody folds out. Of course, I'm folding here. But it's very important that this hand should probably have been folded pre-flop. I shouldn't even put the $11 in. Suited connector hands are probably one of my favorite hands to play in deep stack poker. You have to be a little careful with them because you can make small straights and small flushes and get yourself in big trouble. Here, there's a limper, and I decided to raise to $15. Ended up getting called several ways, and we're going to go to the big blind, who puts in a raise to $45. He's been playing a little bit more aggressive than he normally does, but he usually has a fairly tight range. I'm going to go ahead and put in the call and try to get an overcall from the other player and see if we can hit a flop and stack somebody. So we go three ways to this flop, which comes out ace 9-4 all clubs. So we flop a small flush, and we have our opponent leading into us, but he does so for a small bet of $35. I really like his sizing on this bet. It's just like to find out what kind of information's out there. I can't just call and give someone a cheap draw at a club if they have like a 10 of clubs in their hand or something. So I decided to make it $100. The player in the button goes into the tank for, I say, at least 3 or 4 minutes. Finally, somebody called the clock on them, and we had to get him to react. He eventually folds and later said that he has a hand of ace-king without a club. After he folds, the original bettor puts in the call. So we're going to be heads up here with $342 in the main. Just looking for a non-club and get all the chips in. Comes deuce of diamonds. He just open shoves for his remaining stack. I put in a very quick call. River card comes as a jack of clubs, but doesn't help him other than making him two pair. We're back to a profit. Here's another hand that's very dangerous to play in deep stack poker. It's king-queen offsuit. You don't have the best pair with the best kicker. You always get the second best pair with the second best kicker with this hand. And there was a raise, and I'm on the button. It's so tempting just to put in a call. I should probably just fold this, but I figured I had position. I'll put in a call and see what happened. So we go to the flop, and there's $88 in the pot. And we flop top pair with a decent kicker, the second best kicker. Player bets for $25. Player to my right calls. I make a crying call for the $25. I'm going to be very, very cautious with this hand. My opponent in the small blind now check raises to $130. What could he have? Well, I'm pretty sure he has me beat. That's for sure. I'm guessing he has a hand like Queen Jack with top two pair. Maybe a set of fours. I don't think he'd be check raising with anything else. I don't think he'd be check raising with the flush draw. He's a fairly conservative player who's been having a kind of a rough run of it so far. Player at the end of the table, original bettor, original raiser. He puts in the call, and so does the player on my right. I figure one of them has some sort of straight or flush draw. If the player has, say, a 9-10 in his hand, I can't catch a king and let my hand be good. There's really no real cards I can catch to make my hand good if my opponent has Queen Jack. A king could definitely hit someone with an ace-10 of hearts, perhaps. 9-10 of hearts. Yeah, this is just garbage. Zeus knows it's garbage. I know it's garbage. I think even you guys know it's garbage. So we just go ahead and muck it. See the run out. 9 of clubs brings a second flush draw out there, makes the obvious straight good. Now the player in the small blind bets $160. Not really sure if I like this sizing. The only reason I would bet this sizing in this particular spot is if I had the absolute nuts. If I had like king 10 of hearts or king 10 of clubs. Otherwise, I would just shove. And get all the chips in. Don't let anyone have a draw at it. Player at the end of the table does put in the call for it. Not quite sure what he has. Maybe something like ace jack of hearts. Flopped a pair and a flush draw and is not going anywhere. Player to my right is looking at his hand. It seems like he has some sort of draw also. After some thought, he decides to go ahead and put it in. And it's just going to be the three of them headed to the river, and it's going to be a $958 pot. There's a lot of cards that can make a lot of different hands on this river card. Any heart, any club, any straight card. River card comes as the ace of diamonds. Looks like a blank to me unless someone has a hand like ace jack of hearts, maybe an ace queen of hearts or ace queen. Anyway, the first player decides he's going to check it now. Very odd. Player at the end of the table shoves all in rather quickly for like $165. Player to my right snap folds right away. He mumbled how he missed his draw. He later told me that he had the 9-10 of hearts. So he had a ton of outs and didn't get there. And now it's back to the player in the small blind. And I'm thinking that pot is way too big to be folding for a $160 bet. Even though it feels like you're going to probably be beat, unless you're going to be beat like over 75% of the time, you got to put that money in. I mean, the guy at the end of the table, he could have ace king of hearts. He could have ace 10 of hearts. He doesn't have to have ace jack of hearts. He doesn't have ace queen. I think he would just shove the turn. Anyway, tell me what you guys think the player at the end of the table has, because the player in the small blind decides to finally fold, which was rather surprising. In fact, when he folded, there were like 2 or 3 players that you can actually hear a gasp. Anyway, let me know what you think he had. Very interesting pot. Well, after a very long wait, we finally picked up a real hand, but we had really bad position. We're under the gun with pocket aces. I opened up to my standard sizing of $15. It's folded around to the button, and he finally puts in the call, and so do the blinds. And we're going off 4 ways to a flop that comes 6, 5, 4 with 2 spades. The first 2 players ended up checking, and if you're playing with like 100 big blind stack here, you can probably just go ahead and bet this hand, because most it's going to cost you is 100 big blinds. But when you're playing with 2 or 3 or 400 big blinds, this is not a hand you want to be betting. This is the hand you want to get the showdown as cheap as possible. So when it's on me, I check it, and so does everyone else. Turn card comes as a king of hearts. That's a good card, but again, I'm just trying to get the showdown as cheaply as possible. Not trying to get any extra value out of these aces. Button bets $35. I can't go anywhere, of course. I go ahead and put in the call. River card comes as another scary card. I check it. He checks it back. I show my aces, and of course we're good. But I'm just happy to get the showdown as cheaply as possible. Shortly after this hand, there was a huge 3-way cooler where someone flopped a straight, another person flopped a pair and a royal flush draw, and the third person flopped middle set. All the money went in on the flop, and there was a lot of money to go in there. All of them were playing deep stack, and it was a huge pot. Player with the royal flush draw made a flush on the river, took it down, busted the other 2 players, and it kind of made the game a little bit short for a while. And I decided that was a signal for me to leave. I struggled all day long to get above water, and we got a little bit of a profit, and I'm taking it. So after 3 hours of play, I was up $220. Not a heck of a lot of money, but you know, when you start off with punting off some money on that bomb pot, it feels good to be back to even. I really enjoyed playing some deep stack poker. I didn't really get some of the key hands that I really needed to. That 7-6 suited was a good one to win. But other than that, it was pretty boring. Anyway, for the month, you can see we're starting over again in July. We got $220. And for the year, yeah, it's about the same as it was before. Anyway, I do appreciate you guys watching and subscribing and making comments. Let me know what you think that person had in that one hand. And until next time, good luck at the tables, and we'll see you back here soon.